Well, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think one of the trademarks of our modern American culture is that we will do almost anything. We will go to great lengths to not do the work and to try to get the results before we actually put in the work, right? We love to go around the hard stuff in life. I mean, look no further than when it comes to weight loss and fitness. I mean, we all know that eating at a calorie deficit and exercising often will get us to where we want to go. But can I introduce you to the Ab Blaster 9000? Look, I mean, you can do this while you're laying down eating Cheetos. Come on, this is the easy thing. Let's get that off the screen before I make somebody stumble at church on Sunday morning. When it comes to the world of building wealth and stewardship of our resources, we all know that living within our means and taking care of things having savings to make sure that there's enough for a rainy day, or slow growth investments over the long haul. We know that's the way to get there, but we get obsessed with coins, bitcoins, meme coins. Can I introduce you to Dogecoin or whatever the donut space thing is in the middle? I'm sure that somebody here is invested in this. And I would also challenge anybody to explain to me cryptocurrency in 30 seconds after the service. I would love to see that happen, because it probably won't happen, or I still won't understand it even after that. Beyond this, there are programs and businesses called Klarna or Afterpay. Maybe you've seen this online. It's the buy now, pay later sensation that's going around, where a lot of people are ordering Taco Bell and they're like, I don't have to pay for this right now. I can pay for it over 6 weeks, $3 a week for over 6 weeks. I'm telling you, the next downfall of the American economy is going to be because people are putting Costco hot dogs on their Klarna, and we're going to be paying them off over a long period of time. It's not actually what gets us there. And when it comes to productivity and getting a lot done at work and meeting our goals at work, we know that focusing, having spurts of energy and not being distracted on our task will actually get us there. But oftentimes we might find ourselves on a Zoom call and we're also doing our grocery pickup order at the same time. The camera is on and we're nodding about the avocados that we're purchasing and things like that. Or maybe you find yourself under the gun of a deadline and you know you've got to present something in front of a bunch of people. So you go to AI, you go to ChatGPT, your best friend, and you don't even read what ChatGPT tells you. You just copy and paste it over to your notes. Am I right, Bridgetown Church? Oh, wait, no, I'm kidding. I didn't really do that. Not at all. But we will do about anything to go around the hard things in life, right? And I think it's interesting to me because Jesus actually speaks into this human propensity that we would love to not deal with the challenging seasons and hard things of life. He speaks to it directly with what I like to call a very disturbing challenge, a very disturbing promise that he gives us near the end of his life in John chapter 16, starting in verse 33. In this world, you will have trouble. How's that for a promise that I would not like to come true from Jesus, right? In this world, in this life, you will have trouble. You will have hardship. You will have challenges. You will have moments that knock the wind out of you, that take the floor out beneath you. In this life and in this world, you will have trouble. It's a guarantee. Something we all experience. And before we go any further, I actually want us to let this ancient phrase creep into our modern lives today. I want us to take a moment and just, what is that trouble for you? What is that situation, that season, that problem, that hardship for you? Honestly, I'd love for you to get out a piece of paper, write down one word that represents whatever that trouble is for you. Grab your phone. You're already on it on Facebook. And just go over to the Notes app. Go over to the Notes app and write one word. Seriously, this is your permission to get your phone out or to take notes in church, but write down a word that is representative of that trouble for you. And just to get our minds going in this direction, maybe for you, it's something that you got yourself into, a situation that you wish you could reverse out of, but now it's a mess in your life. Or maybe it's a bad situation that was brought on to you by the decisions of someone else. Maybe it's just the life circumstances around you that are out of your control, the trivia that the universe dropped into your lap that you're oh, I can't believe I have to deal with this, but it's left you in a mess. Maybe for you, it's relational turmoil. Maybe it's between your partner or your spouse where you guys are drifting apart. Or maybe if you're a parent, it's your child, your children that you guys used to be so close, but you can just tell they are drifting away from you. They're not trusting you. There's not a closeness or intimacy the way there used to be. Maybe for you, it's a financial crunch, a financial situation Month after month, you have more month than you do money, and you know you need to have more income or a different source of income, but just the thought of figuring it out is exhausting to you. And it is this trouble that you wish you didn't have to go through at all. I want us to keep that in mind this morning, because all month we're going to be circling around to these hard seasons that we wish we could get out of. But when it comes to this disturbing promise of Jesus, he's not done with his thought. He continues on in the same sentence, and I think he brings hope to it, but also a sense of responsibility and a purpose for us in our trouble. Because Jesus says this, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, have courage. I have overcome the world. All the way throughout the month of November, we're going to talk about what it looks like to take heart. What's it look like to have courage? What's it look like to get through whatever that thing is that you're going through? What's it like to get to the other side? And here's where we're going with this. Even though we would love to go around all the hard problems that we have in our life, although we would love to be lifted out, like evacuated from the challenges of our life, that actually does us more harm than good so often. So many of the problems that I've had in my life is because I want to bypass the challenge, and I actually need to learn how to go through the challenge. So here's where we're going. This is how we do this. This is how we take heart. We need to understand that the way out is through. We need to learn what it looks like to go through the things that are in front of us. We need to learn how to, in a healthy, emotionally healthy, spiritually healthy way, to walk through life's challenging seasons. Because the way out is not above, it's not being lifted out, rescued, it's actually going through. And here's the good news, my friends, is that in a life where we are following Jesus, living as partners with God, in this life, we are given resources. We are empowered to do this through walking with Jesus and following the way he's designed us to live. And so that's what we're going to go towards in this series, is we're going to learn how to go through the thing that you're going through and understand that the way out of these situations is boldly with God walking through them. You know, the reality of any kind of life of faith, oftentimes we think it's about making one decision and then I just come to church and everything is like amazing and it's all up and to the right life. But it's so much more than just a moment-based decision. It's a journey. I mean, the life of faith it might start with a decision, but it is a journey that goes through life. And there are different twists and turns and stages of this journey. I know I've used this illustration before, but I think it's so helpful to understand the journey of faith. Now, before you became a Christian, or maybe you're here and you're just like checking out the whole faith thing, you might find yourself on right here, before faith, where you don't really know God. You don't or haven't decided to live under his kingdom and him being your leader. And that's where everybody begins. But in decision of following Jesus, everything takes off. And many people, right after they decide to follow Jesus, they find themselves in what we call the confident faith stage of the journey. The confident faith stage is where, like, on Sunday mornings, it doesn't have to be daylight savings time or anything like that. You jump out of bed, you're excited to go to church. You love every song that we sing. You're like tearing up almost every chorus. Whoever's speaking, it's like they're talking directly about your life. When you pray, you feel like you see God answer your prayers right in front of you, and everything is amazing in that confident faith season. But here's the reality. In a journey of faith, you don't stay there forever. Sometimes you don't stay there very long because life hits you and challenges hit you and life is more complicated and people let you down and you go, things are just a struggle and you don't feel it the same way you did in a confident faith stage. And people hurt you and somebody asks you a question about the Bible and you don't know how to answer it, so you have doubt creep in and God's not showing up or speaking to you as clearly as he once did before. And so you just find yourself in this challenge faith and you would do anything to just go backwards to that confident faith stage. But here's the good news and the bad news. You can't. You can't go backwards in a spiritual journey. So people in a challenged faith season, they either eject from the whole thing and they're like, oh, this thing must not be real because it's not the way it once was. They push the eject button, they leave faith. Or they make a courageous and bold decision to push through, to go through that challenge. And they find themselves in a whole different level of faith, what I like to call living faith. And these are the people that inspire you when you hear their story, because they're people that if it was you and you had experienced everything they had experienced in life with all the hurt and all the pain, you would just go into a dark room all by yourself and cry yourself to sleep every day of your life. But somehow they have this defiant joy. They somehow have gone through what you would not wish to your worst enemy, but they've come through it, and they're like marked by grace and forgiveness. And you're like, why? You have no reason to do that. But it's because they worked through and they went through their challenged faith season, and they have this living, vibrant, real, authentic trust in Jesus that's not just about head knowledge, but it's about a trust that they can carry through any season of life. And this, my friends, is what I want for each and every one of us. This is what I want for my life, and that's the kind of community we want to be here. Not people that just have head knowledge, not people that are just like giddy on a confident early faith, but people that have been through it, and it's only by God's grace that they're still standing with this defiant joy. So that's where we want to go in the series, to help us go through the challenges, whatever that is, to get to the other side. And we're going to start today by talking about the moments in life that just shake us, the moments that it feels like the ground beneath us just crumbles and we feel like we're falling, the moments that we never see coming that leave us feeling this, leave us feeling shock. You know, like shock, like when you get home from vacation and you step on the scale and you're like, oh, what have I done? Shock, like when you hear your kids say a cuss word for the first time and you're so mad, you're wondering, where'd they hear this? Where'd they hear that? And you realize it might have been you. But like beyond that, like really like shocking moments where it feels like your whole world collapses, where everything that you were leaning on, you no longer could lean on. The floor beneath you disappears and you are just in a free fall because of something that you could not protect yourself from, you could not predict, you could not be prepared for. Those shocking moments in life. Maybe for you, you experienced shock when you had a supervisor, a boss, pull you into their office and tell you that your job was being eliminated. Maybe for you, you were at a doctor's appointment. The doctor came in with a clipboard and they sit down and they look at you and said, hey, we need to have a hard conversation, and they give you some bad news. I know some in this room, you had a spouse or a partner say, hey, I'm done. I'm checking out. I'm moving on. This thing is over with. And you had placed all of your identity in that relationship, and it feels like the whole ground beneath you was crumbling. Others of us, you get a call from somebody, and they say, oh, I hate to inform you, but we did the best we could, but they're no longer with us. Have you experienced shock before, where a moment came out of left field and you knew that there was going to be a before and after in your life based on that moment? For me, first experience with shock I think I ever had was when I was 26. My father, who was only 61 years old, he was, really struggling with health for a long time, and there was a summer where it felt like he was in the hospital often trying to get fluid off of his heart, and they would be able to deal with it, and he would be in the hospital for a few days, and he'd come home, hospital for a few days, come home, and it was one day in August 2015 where my mom called me and said, hey, your dad's in the hospital again, and they don't think he's going to be coming home. They're shipping him down to 86th Street, and they're going to do the best they can, but I need you here right now. And I remember driving down to Carmel and thinking, oh my gosh, like this is probably it. And even though I felt like I was prepared, man, you're never prepared for that at all. And I remember going into the ICU room and holding his hand as he's hooked up to a bunch of machines and trying to tell him everything I wanted to tell him. And I just told him I loved him and that he was okay to let go. And I remember holding on to his hand and then turning off the machines, and then me crashing into the wall of this hospital room, sliding down to the floor and just sobbing uncontrollably because I couldn't even control my legs. And then somehow later in that day, I got home. I drove home. I do not remember driving home at all because I was in a state of shock, and I knew that everything was going to be different after that. And I imagine in a room with this much diversity of life experience and age, like we've all had maybe some experience like that before. And something that I find solace in when I approach the Bible, when I approach life with God, is that when you look at the scriptures, the Bible is not full of these like superheroes with super faith whose life was like all butterflies and rainbows. Like, you're dealing with a lot of messy people with life's messiest situations, and they go through the same kind of stuff that we do over and over and over again. Like, there's this one part in the Old Testament where this guy named Solomon is writing some wisdom in the book of Ecclesiastes. But it's interesting about Solomon. Solomon was probably the wealthiest guy in the history of the world up to this point. And he's also known as one of the wisest men who ever lived. This is a guy who his life has been insulated because of his power, because he's a king, and because of his wisdom and his wealth, insulated from so much challenge. But Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes about shock and how you can't actually ever avoid it. He says this: people can never predict when hard times might come. Like fish in a net or birds in a trap, people are caught by sudden tragedy. Isn't it interesting that Solomon, a man who had so much power, so much opulent wealth, who could insulate himself from so much discomfort, recognized that there's no getting out of life, no matter your station in life, without dealing with situations that you can't predict, that you're not prepared for, that you're caught up with. And I think Solomon understood this because he looked back in his family's history and saw that there was so much tragedy and shock in his family. His father, David, was king before him. And through tragedy of war, David's son, Absalom, was killed in battle. And so when the news comes back to King David, what we get in the Bible is a distinct description of someone experiencing shock. David hears the news, and this is how David responds to his son, Absalom, being killed. The king was shaken, physically trembling is what that verb means. He went up to the room over the gateway and wept. He isolated himself from other people and went up to his quarters where he could be alone, which is what people do in shock. And then he was almost on a loop. He just keeps repeating the same phrase over and over and over again. As he went, he said, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son." He is experiencing shock because of the tragedy of losing his son. You move later into the Hebrew scriptures and you're introduced to an interesting guy by the name of Job. And we don't know too much about Job at the beginning of his story outside of he was a righteous guy. He was a guy who walked with God. He was a guy who was very wealthy, that he had been blessed with many physical gifts, and he had a lot of land and a bunch of livestock, and he had a large family. But pretty soon into Job's story, you learn that it's all taken away. His wealth is all stolen from him. His family is all died or been killed, and he's all by himself. And Job responds with shock, in a state of shock. At this, Job, after he heard this, Job got up and tore his robe, which was an ancient Near Eastern way of saying, I am grieving and I have no dignity that I care about at all. Beyond that, he shaved his head, which was an ancient Near Eastern way of saying, I have no identity at all. And it's a humiliating act to show that you are at the bottom of the floor. Then he fell to the ground, just losing control of his legs. He's experiencing shock, right? Moving into the New Testament, I find so much peace and I find so much solace in that even Jesus himself experienced shock. I mean, most scholars would say that he had a physical reaction to the loss of his friend Lazarus in John chapter 11. Like, check this out, like Jesus, 100% God, but also 100% man. He went through everything that we can go through in life, and he experienced shock. This is what John 11 tells us. When Jesus saw her, some of Lazarus' family weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Jesus wept, not just cried a little bit, sobbed uncontrollably. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. We see this over and over again. A few interesting things here. The Greek verb that's used for deeply moved and troubled, we see that phrase here in verse 33 and 38. It's actually a Greek word that has this combination, this cocktail of sorrow and anger together. And if you've ever experienced shock, like, you know, there's these weird, angry, teeth-gritting emotions and also sorrow, and it's combined together. Jesus himself was angry about what happened, and he felt sadness, deep sadness, as he's weeping over the loss of his friend. And I want us to run through all of these examples just to illustrate the reality that it's okay to not be okay. I mean, come on, can we just cut through it a little bit here? We're in church where everybody's got their church face on, and everybody looks great, smells great, and we want to say, if everybody asks us how we're doing, good, I'm good, it's great, it's great. Come on, let's move past that. It's okay to not be okay. We all pass through seasons where there are things that we couldn't predict that knock the wind out of us, that knock us to our knees. Even our rabbi, our leader, our Savior, Jesus, experienced this deep, deep pain. You are not alone. And so I want to approach the issue of shock in two different ways, because here's the reality. All of us, even though we have diverse life experiences, different stages of our journey and our life, we are in one or two or three places. One, we might be right now in a moment of shock. We might be in a season of shock and sorrow and sadness and grief. We might be there right now. But I guarantee, if we're not in there right now, we know somebody that is, or know somebody who's struggling right now. And even beyond that, if we don't know somebody that is and we're not currently in it, here's the dark promise from your pastor this morning, is that you will be someday, man. There's no insulating your life. There's no getting out of here without experiencing this. So I want to help us from all three of those places see, how do we deal with this? How do we get through it as it stands in front of us? And first, because we want to be a community, like Allison mentioned earlier, we want to be a community that's always looking out to the needs of others. We want to be a community of people that don't just talk about faith, and it's not just a spiritual thing that's happening in us, but it's something that flows out of us to the world around us. I want to help us by first thinking about the people that we might know that are going into shock or in a shocking season. How do we love them well? So we'll put it this way. Sort of start walking through this. How to love people experiencing shock. The first piece of advice that I have for you is this. Just show up. Just be there. Don't ask them what you can do for them, because if you ask them, it's just giving them another thing they need to process, another thing on their list. Just show up for them. This is what's called the ministry of presence, you guys. And it is so stinking powerful. I mean, this goes right to the way that God sent Jesus into the world. He could have sent the Savior through a voice. He could have sent the Savior through a book or the written word, but no, he sends a person. God in a bod, because when we show up, that was not supposed to be that funny. Totally messed with the whole tone of this message at this point. And scene. When we show up, this is how we partner with God, because this is what God does for us. Don't come in feeling like you are here to fix the situation, because that's way above your pay grade. But when you just show up and you're there to just be a loving presence, to sit with them, it changes everything. I mean, bring them all of the comfort food, because there's no calories when you're in shock, right? Like, do that. But like, watch The Office for the 10th time with them, because if it's their comfort show, just sit there and laugh with them, even though you've just watched that episode the night before. It doesn't really matter. Just be there with them. Hear me, you guys. Like, this is what deep Christians do. Let's not confuse ourselves or lie to ourselves, say that deep Christians have to just know a bunch of stuff and they got all the facts and they know the Greek and the Hebrew. Come on. Deep Christianity shows up for those who are hurting, to sit with them. The next piece of advice I have for you, and don't tell my kids I said this because this is not allowed in our house, but shut up! Stop talking. Stop preaching at them. Don't quote Bible verses to them. I'm being dead serious, and it's coming from the preacher. It does sometimes more harm than good. There are things that are ultimately and eternally true that are deeply hurtful in the wrong moment. So don't tell them that all things happen according to God's will. Come on, sit with them and just be quiet. Give your presence. Your magic words are not going to heal anything. And trust me, they just fall on deaf ears, and they can cause more harm than good. Show up more than we talk. I read recently that hospital chaplains have this acrostic that they want to remind themselves of as they walk into rooms where people are struggling with their health in a hospital. It's WAIT, W-A-I-T, and it stands for this: why am I talking? And it's a reminder for them, am I talking just to fill the awkward space? Am I talking because I think that I'm so important that my words are going to fix the situation? Why am I talking? I think that's a good thing for us to remember. Again, this is deep Christian spirituality, for us just to be there, be present, show up, and shut our traps for the glory of God. And beyond that, one more. Share in their pain. Paul writes to the church in Rome, he says, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Share their pain. Don't feel like you've got to come up with the trite Christianese to make everything better. Sit with them and hold their hand and say, this sucks. Yeah, you're scared. I'm scared too. You mean the world to me, and I hate that we are here. Share in their pain. Sit with them and be with them and share in the devastation that they are experiencing. Like, empathize with them, but do not compare your experience with them. Because comparison in this, it doesn't no good. Even if it's the same situation, it's all different. So just sit and empathize with them, hurt with them, suffer with them, sit in silence with them. There's this beautiful Jewish tradition of sitting Shiva. And in Judaism, they would actually, when there would be a death in the family, close friends and family, their brothers and sisters in faith and in their life would come and sit with them for 7 days straight. And they don't have to say a word, but they're going to take off work, take vacation time, and they're just going to sit there with you. And that is a beautiful practice, not there to fix anything, but just to bear witness to their pain and say, yes, this is awful, but I'm here with you. That's deep Christianity. That's the real stuff, you guys. I love author Anne Lamott says this. Nothing heals us like letting people know our scariest parts. When people listen to you cry and grieve and look at you with love, it's like they are holding the baby of you. That's beautiful. But also, if you've got pride and vulnerability feels like your kryptonite, that's terrifying, right? But this is what it's like to extend love, is to see their scariest parts and embrace them and lift them up anyway, to share in their pain. So, you guys, before we move off of this, if you're just visiting Bridgeway and you're just checking things out, this is a weird morning for you to be here. We're just glad you're here. I want you to hear this. But like, for those of us that call this place our home, if we're like on mission with Bridgeway together, like, let's be these types of people that show up, that shut up and share in the pain of others. Like, this is who we are called to be. This is how we follow Jesus. So let's not move past this too quickly. Let's do this together. When it's inconvenient, when it's sacrificial, this is what it looks like. But beyond that, like I said earlier, like maybe you're in a season of shock. And if not, man, we're all staring it down and we don't know when it's coming. So how do we walk through shock? How do we build our lives in such a way that we have the tools and the resources and the plan to go through shock and not skirt around it and cause more problems later? You know, I want to talk through a couple of these, like how to walk through shock. First, we've got to let others help. And this is a challenge for some of us because we like to be the people that help, right? We like to be the ones that are known for the broad shoulders, that we can do anything. We like to be the ones that other people have on speed dial so we can show up. But again, man, that could be more pride speaking than anything else, can't it? We need to let others help. Because if you're anything like me, man, like that's scary and that's vulnerable and it feels like, oh no, like I ask for help. No, I'm the one that gives help. No, like we need to be people like that. I need to be more like that. We all need to be people that let others help. This is where we lean on our deep friendships and the people that have been in the trenches with us, and we ask them to show up, or we let them show up to help bring healing to us. But there are other times where we need to let others help, where we need to actually reach for some resources outside of our tribe. Because we might be mentally in distress, emotionally in distress, and we might not have the tools to see through the situation. And we take this so seriously here at our church because we think that God takes your mental health seriously as well. And so maybe for you, it's talking to a professional. Maybe for you, it's talking to a coach that can help you see through the forest to the other side of it. And so we have this ministry here at our church called Mental Matters. And this might be a good thing for you to take a picture of or write down this link for you or for somebody else. But we have a vetted list of therapists and counselors in this town that we trust, some that I have personally seen in my own journey, that we want to let you get connected with if you need it. We also have some mental health coaches that are volunteers at our church that have gone through training, like sort of in a mental health triage, to help listen to you, to help you take whatever that next step is. But hear me, it is not strength to not ask for help. It is weakness. Guys, it is not strength to not ask for help. It is weakness. So let's be people that let others help us and reach out when we need it, especially when we are in a moment where it felt like the ground beneath us disappeared. And beyond that, there's our horizontal help, right, with our peers and our friends and other networks. But we need vertical help too. When we get to a place where we can have no resources within ourselves, we need to reach out to God. And I'll call it this. For us to go through shock, we need to learn how to cry out to God, have the rhythm and the practice of crying out to God. Not just crying to God, but crying out to God. In the Hebrew Scriptures, in the second book of our Old Testament, in Exodus, we pick up with God's people who are enslaved and they're being oppressed by the Egyptian empire and Pharaoh day after day after day, building bricks for the Egyptian kingdom under slave labor. And after a period of time, God's people decide that they're going to cry out to him because they need help beyond themselves. We learn this in Exodus chapter 2, starting in verse 23. During that long period of slavery, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery. This phrase groaned here is actually nehekah in the Hebrew, and it's the cry of the oppressed. It's the cry from under the boot of empire, of oppression and slavery of the most vulnerable people. They cry out nehekah in their groaning to God in their slavery and cried out, and in their cry for help, the second word for cry here in these two phrases is the phrase za'ak, and it's the cry of helplessness and despair, of nothing in your hands, no resources to rescue yourself, but you, za'ak, crying out for help to the heavens because of their slavery. And these cries went up to God. The ne'ekah, the za'ak, they went up to God. And I love what the next verse tells us about God's response. God heard their ne'ekah, their groaning. And he remembered his covenant, his promised relationship with Abraham and with Isaac and Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites. He saw them and was concerned about them. Now notice this. Our Heavenly Father heard the cry of his people. On Monday nights, my wife and I are a part of a table group of some other young couples, bunch of kids. So we meet in one of the kids' rooms, and down the hall in the large kids' room, there's like 25 of our kids all in one room, and 2 childcare workers, God bless their souls. But it's amazing. We'll be like in our group all circled up, eating and talking and doing some Bible study together, and you'll hear a cry from that room with all the kids. And what do I see every time? The moms go, waiting for the second cry. Oh, that's mine. And they know it, and they leave to go see if they can help in the room. And it's an amazing thing because moms know the cry of their kids, right? We know their distinct cry. Your Heavenly Father knows your cry, and he hears your cry. And I don't know whatever dark situation that you're thinking about today, whatever struggle that you are going through, but what was true for the Israelites is true in your life, that God hears you. That God has not forgotten about you, that God remembers you. He's not forgotten about you. God sees you. As God looked upon them, he sees you in your struggle. And this God cares about you. I don't know why this is going on, but it can't be because he doesn't care about you and he can't love you, because he does. Whatever you're going through, you cry out to him. And you'll be so pleasantly surprised by the God that shows up. This leads to, again, this beautiful tradition called lament. To cry out to God is to lament. And it's more than just complaining to God, right? Like, we are really good at complaining about things in our culture. We complain about the Wi-Fi being out. We complain that the next season of that show that we're watching is not out. We complain that the restaurant we went to changed their ranch dressing. Why, God? Why'd they change the ranch? Terrible decision. But lamenting is a lot more than just complaining about things. Here's a definition of lament. Lament is the faithful expression of grief, distress, or complaint directed to God. This is a faithful expression of crying out, complaining, not about God, or just about our situations, but to God about our situations. There's a distinct difference there. Lament is a faithful expression. It is real, it is authentic, but it is not polite. It is not flowery with Christian theological language, but it is real. And it's this expression of whatever we're feeling, being able to direct it to God, trusting that He's big enough to handle it, and He's the only one that can bring us out of it. In other words, lament does not go around our pain, but it stares it down head on, and it goes through it with the only one who could actually carry us through being a part of that conversation. It's a protest, but it's a relational protest with God. And inside of the Bible, there's lament everywhere. And namely, it's in the Psalms. And the Psalms are that big collection of 150 worship songs and prayers in the Old Testament. And we tend to think about the Psalms or about worship songs all being about rah, rah, I got joy deep in my heart. Like the kind of thing going on, like all that kind of vibe, right? But when you look at the Psalms, some scholars believe that between 40 and 45% of the Psalms contain lament in them. They contain this crying out, this relational protest, this complaining to God about what's going on in our lives. 40 to 45% of them. Again, the Bible does not hide this, you guys. It is a tool that God wants us to use in our struggles. And one of the examples, I just want to look at one today. It's a really interesting one from Psalm 13. Again, this is David, who had felt so much tragedy and trauma and drama in his life. Psalm 13, David begins like this. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Swoop the bangs, a little emo going on from David, right? How would you describe his tone here? How would you describe what's going on with David? Another question, can you imagine singing this together? It'd have to have a dark heavy metal vibe to it, right? But this is in the Bible. And he is crying out. He's got, where are you? Why aren't you doing what you did for them for me? Why are they winning when they're doing the wrong thing and I'm struggling? God, where are you? I am depressed. I've got sorrow in my heart. Where are you? This is not polite, but this is real. This is lament. And what's interesting about this psalm in particular and what lament does to us as we walk through it is where David goes in this same psalm just a few verses later. There's a middle section, but at the end of the psalm, just 2 verses later, David has a little bit of a different tune. He's singing in a different chord structure. He says this at the end of the same psalm, just 2 verses later, but I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices, celebrates in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. What? Is David schizophrenic? Is David, in the first little bit of that psalm, was he just hangry and somebody gave him a Snickers and now he's in a good mood again? And there's different ways to interpret this. Some scholars will interpret that David has such a rich theology and a rich relationship with God that he can hold the angst and the anger and the lament and the joy all together. And I think there's some beauty in that. But where I'm landing currently in my life is that David only gets here because he went through lament. Lament is a doorway into the joy on the other side that we have to walk through. We have to be real and cry out to God and get not polite towards God so that we can get to the joy, to the singing, to the trust on the other side. Do you have a relationship with God where you can yell at him, where you can cry out and complain to him? The late, great Eugene Peterson once said that when we lament and cry out to God, it's how we cuss without cussing. Because our God is big enough to handle whatever we're feeling. How do we get through it? How do we get through the dark, shocking seasons? We cry out to God. We lament. We go through every range of emotion with him instead of going around him. As we close, I want us to think about, for us, are we open-handed to receive help from others? Or have we insulated ourselves with this facade of strength and self-sufficiency where we don't like to ask for help, or we're not even open for asking for help? Open up your hands. Let go of that pride. Open up your hands to ask for help, to be open to receive help, because you're going to need it. We all do. And do we have the type of relationship with God where we think he's big enough to handle our real emotions? Or are we caught up trying to be polite with our church face and our Christianese speak? Where in your life do you need to cry out to God? Think back to that word. Think back to that phrase, that pop-up video, maybe if you didn't write anything down, of that hard season. What would it look like for you to cry out to God, to complain to God, with God this week? Because I'm telling you, that's how we get through it. And that's how we get through whatever we're going through. With the help of others